Good night, everyone. Oh, hold on a minute. Let me change the camera setting. My bad. Okay, that's better. Good. Can you all see me and hear me? Can you all hear and see me? Let me know in the live chat, please. Thank you very much. As you can see, it's quite misty tonight all around me. And, well, it's very hard to see very far away, but it's not a problem. Just let me know if you can hear me clearly or not. I'm going to get out of this bicycle within a few seconds. Hold on. I'm not going to drive a bicycle with the phone in my hands. Not going to do that. Hold on. You all can hear me clearly? Okay, that is good. Some of you may ask yourself, Mr. Dassel or Rashid, why are you awake now? It's 2:30 a.m. in the Netherlands. Well, that's correct. I fell asleep quite early yesterday after work. And, well, when I woke up, it was like an half hour ago. I realized, okay, hey, I don't have any sleep anymore. I'm fully awake. So I decided let me do a little bike ride around, and guess what? It's misty everywhere. One thing I've noticed when I left the house with my bicycle is that I didn't hear any cars. Well, right now you hear some cars passing by, but when I left the house, I was thinking, where are the cars? And I thought, you know what? Let me make a live stream about this. This is going to be my inspiration for another live stream. Look at this. It's misty. You barely hear cars because normally, because I live nearby, normally you would hear cars 24/7 passing by. Some of those cars even make a lot of noise, thinking they're cool. But anyway, use this around me as a parable. It's misty. You can't see in front of you, of course. For example, I can see in front of me clearly, but when it comes to long distances, you can't see that well. Well, my bicycle has two good lights, so no problem with that. And because there are barely cars around, there's not as much risk on the road. And that's the topic of this live stream, risk reduction. Look, why do we have traffic rules? The simple reason why we have traffic rules is because risk exists. Okay? Let's say you have one car driving on the road and there's nobody else on the road. The only risk that can happen is that the car crashes because the driver is drunk or whatever. Let's say you have two cars on the road. Now there's a possibility, I don't think it's going to happen, now there's a possibility that the cars may collide. So you don't want the cars to collide. Of course not. You want to reduce the risk of a car accident. So to reduce the risk, you put traffic rules in place. You also put a rule that you need to have a driver's license before you drive a car. Now, does having a driver's license guarantee that everyone on the road will be safe? No, absolutely not. No amount of training can guarantee that traveling on the road will be safe. Oh, and by the way, there are more people dying each year in traffic than in aviation. So plane crashes are rare. Car accidents are a daily thing. So you cannot fully eliminate the possibility that something bad may happen on the road, but you can reduce it by taking measures, by putting restrictions how fast someone's allowed to drive, or you can have police officers putting fines on people, make it hard on financially if they don't consider the roads. You can put people in prison if they were reckless on the road. You could do all of those things. The goal is to reduce the risk on the roads. Well, right now, there ain't much risk on the road to begin with because there are barely people around. Not only because it's 2:30 a.m. or there's a car passing by now. I think you can see it. Yeah. Not only because it's 2:30 right now, but also because there are barely cars active now. You see a lot of cars around me, but they're not being used. You don't see bicycles either, neither motorcycles. Well, I understand why. Because especially when you ride the bicycle, it's important to be able to see far off. Well, this mist right now, to, this night is not that thick. I've seen mist much thicker than this, in which you could even see 30 meters ahead of you. But understand, risk reduction is a healthy thing to participate in. Now, I used the term risk avoidance in the past, and I've explained that risk avoidance is a proper thing to do in the right context. Why no? Let me revise that. I'm not going against what I said earlier in the live stream. I'm going to add to it. Instead of saying risk avoidance, we should say risk reduction. English is not my first language, so sometimes I need to reflect and review what I said and find a way to say it in a more effective and clearer way. I even have that in Dutch and Papiamento, which are my first languages. Now, risk avoidance versus risk reduction. Well, actually, the terms already say it. Risk avoidance, risk reduction. For example, this headset I have on right now has noise reduction in it. They built the headset in such a way they can reduce the noise from the environment. Another car passes by. But here's the issue: there will always be background noise because background noise is natural. Some background noise can be quite annoying because it interferes with you listening to music, or can interfere with people hearing you because it is too much for the microphone. So these headsets have this thing in them installed that it reduces background noise, but it can never fully remove background noise. It cannot. It's impossible to fully remove background noise, but you can reduce it. Now think about these things. Risk is a natural thing. You decide to um, go outside in the sun. Okay, it's not much risk. What if suddenly begins to rain? That's not that likely it's going to rain. So raindrops fell almost in my eye, but anyway, God is good. But it can happen. Now, if it's a clear blue sky and a very clouds in the sky, then the possibility of it raining will be quite low, but it's still there. Look, risk can also be harmful. For example, let's say you're in the forest and you pick some mushrooms to eat. There are mushrooms you can pick out of the forest and eat them, but some mushrooms can be toxic for your body. And let's say now, by accident, you pick the wrong mushroom and eat it. Well, you may end up in a hospital, or you may end up dying in some cases. In this case, risk can be harmful or even lethal. Or let's say now, um, there's an electric cord coming with your blender, but electric cord is not isolated well. And when you use the blender, you get electric shock. Well, you're dead in this case. So, for your safety, certain risks need to be eliminated. For example, if you have a little baby in the house, certain objects shouldn't be on the ground because the baby doesn't know any better. The baby just picks up everything. So, what I'm saying is that for human safety, meaning our bodily safety, we need some regulations. For example, there may be regulation that, for some of your parents may have the regulation you're not allowed to go into the kitchen without us telling you. Why? Because you may hurt yourself in the kitchen, and you were a little child. So that was something to preserve you and your safety. Or you may have a regulation that you're not allowed to have too much alcohol in your system or take medication for driving a car, because that reduces your capacity to function in the car, and that increases the risk of you and others getting hurt. So for our physical, for our human safety, naming our physical safety, We can't tolerate every risk. A risk is a potential outcome. For example, you're in the kitchen. A potential outcome can be that the cake stays too long in the oven and burns. This is not an outcome, outcome you want, but it's a possible outcome. A possible outcome of um, driving on the road can be that someone crashed into you with their car because, I don't know, they weren't functioning well. That's a possible outcome. A risk is a possible outcome that threatens another outcome. So a risk can be objective, that is, when a risk may endanger your health or your safety, and the risk can be subjective. Let's say you just want to be at home doing nothing, and suddenly the neighbors have loud music on. Now, you want to do nothing, complete at ease, it was something you want to do. But now the neighbors have loud music and fists over there. So what's going on there disrupts the outcome you want. In this case, the risk is subjective because there is no actual danger in your neighbors having loud music on. It's just that it frustrates what you want. So a risk can be objective. That is when the risk is when the potential outcome is a danger to your health or your safety. That's an objective risk. And the risk can also be subjective. It's just something you want, but it's not happening. Now, whether a risk is objective or subjective, our human mind does not care. Our human mind perceives risks as risks. So it comes down to this. Your mind doesn't distinguish between, why is the police car passing by? Okay, I often have that. Police cars keep popping up everywhere I tend to be in public, but anyway, I hope, I hope I'm exaggerating and it's not what I'm thinking it is, but anyway. But your mind cannot distinguish between fact and fiction. Let me say it one more time. Your mind cannot distinguish between fact or fiction. Rashid, what do you mean my mind can't distinguish between fact or fiction? Okay, let me explain to you. Let's say you imagine eating a cake. What happens to your body? Your brain already thinks you're eating a cake. So so your body gets into the mood. Or let's say you see someone from the opposite sex that you consider attractive. What happens? Your body is in the sexual mood. Are you eating a cake right now? No. Are you having sexual intercourse? No. But the mind is instantly gratified when you mention something. Now, the body is not instantly gratified because the body doesn't have the cake yet, or the body is not into the sexual intercourse, but the mind is instantly gratified by imagination. So, whether the thing is actually happening or it's not happening, it doesn't matter. To the mind, whatever you imagine is real. It doesn't have to be that the thing you're imagining is actually real out there. But to your mind, it is real and it will have an effect on both your mind and your body. So, someone may be upset that there are so many migrants entering the country. Recently, again, many Dutch people are so upset. Not all, but many Dutch people are upset that the borders aren't closed, the borders of the Netherlands. Because they would say, oh, it's going to be dangerous for us and our children. Meanwhile, there are many child molesters still on the loose in the Netherlands. So what's a worse? What's a factual, objective risk to your children? The child molesters, the native child molesters on the loose out there, or those asylum seekers that come in? We'll talk about right now. Okay, let me give me an answer. What do you think? What is an actual factual risk to your children? An objective risk? The child molesters on the loose right now already in the country, or those potential asylum seekers getting in? Let me know. What do you think is an objective risk to your children? Let me know in the live chat. All right. I'm curious for your answers. What is an actual risk to your children? The child molesters that are local, or potential asylum seekers that get in and remain in asylum centers? Okay, let's see what the answers are. I'll just wait another minute to see which answer you're giving. I hope the live chat is working also. God is good. Just one cycle, let's just pass by, okay? All right. I don't know what's up. So live chat working? Good. I think many of you didn't even understood. I asked a question. I asked the question, what is an actual risk for your children? But anyway, let me continue. So the child molesters on the loose already out there, they are an objective risk to your children. Absolutely. The asylum seekers that come in only stay in asylum centers. So your children are less likely to encounter asylum seekers. They are to encounter local child molesters. So on a rationally speaking, you should be more concerned with the local child molesters. Absolutely. But some folks are more upset with asylum seekers based on their ideology. So are asylum seekers a bigger threat to your children than local child molesters? No, they're not. The asylum seekers are barely a threat to your children. But to the minds of those people, the child molester is not a, they don't even think about the child molester. They think more about the asylum seekers because it goes against their ideology. So in this case, even though the child molesters are a worse risk to the children, in the minds of those people, the threat of the child molesters is non-existent. Even though the threat is a real existing threat, in their minds it's not. So they experience a danger that doesn't even exist. But because to the mind there is no difference between fact or fiction, the mind now goes into a survival mode. Now people develop fear disorders concerning migrants. Why? Because again, the mind cannot distinguish between fact or fiction. Whatever you imagine to the mind, that is what goes on. All right? Now there are ways for you to check whatever goes on. That's why besides the mind, you have the intuition. The intuition is what's actually keeping the mind in check. The intuition is objective and it scans its environment. However, too many people are not in tune with their intuition. They're not. And because they're not in tune with their intuition, whenever their minds are off, there's no natural check on them. For example, you may hear your friends and family talk about, oh, the borders are open. Oh, all the asylum seekers coming in. They're going to start raping our daughters in the streets, all of that. You may hear all of that, and you may end up believing it. And now you feel afraid. But it can be that in reality, there are barely asylum seekers around you. Now, your inner radar, this mechanism of you, the spirit being, I call it a mechanism, it's not something mechanical, but it's a system God designed in you. Your inner radar, your inner radar picks up objective danger. Your inner radar picks up psychic vibrations, whether good or bad. So if there's danger, your inner radar picks it up, as simple as that. Your inner radar will alert you if there's danger or not. But now, your mind is in a panic mode concerning asylum seekers, even though there's no actual danger around you. And by the way, now you think that male asylum seekers bring danger. Well, there can be other dangerous people around you. So now, because such individual is not in tune with their intuition, the mind wanders off. The mind wanders off. And they end up being trapped in cults, or they end up becoming delusional. So, a healthy human being is a human being who is in tune with their intuition. A human being not in tune with their intuition is not a healthy human being, because the inner radar is objective factor of you, the spirit being that picks up danger. With too many people, their minds imagine a danger, and whether or not the danger is there, the danger they imagine now have an effect on them. So now there was no danger out there, but now they invented danger that didn't exist, and the danger is internal. So it's not a danger out there that's harming them, it's a danger inside that haunts them. So understand this. And again, it's quite quiet around here. No risk on the road whatsoever because there aren't any participants on the road. That's why the street lights are not working, because the street lights work when there's traffic. If there is no traffic, why would the street lights work? So that's why the street lights only give off an orange light. The orange light means just pay attention to yourself. Now, why it's important to understand this? Your mind cannot distinguish between fact or fiction. That's not something the mind can do. The intuition picks up objective danger, whether it's danger or not. The intellect is what you use to examine what you're thinking or what you're feeling. Hold on, I need to stop. There's a car coming. It's quite far away, but still. Understand this. People that are so into avoiding risk, they end up becoming paranoid, they end up becoming delusional, and even end up becoming violent and dangerous. Because absolute removal of risk would mean that you're dead. Let me say it like this. And remember, a risk can be objective, so an actual threat to your well-being or your health, that's an objective risk. And a risk can be subjective. Let's say you want to go to the beach and have a great time, and suddenly it begins to rain. You think, what the heck is raining? The rain that falls now threatens the outcome of you just want to enjoy your time at the beach. That's a subjective risk. It's not actual danger or anything harmful that may happen. Understand that being alive itself means the risk everywhere. Maybe you want to go to the movies with your friends, but suddenly there's a electric outage. The power goes down in the neighborhood, so even the cinema has no power. So guess what? Something you couldn't prevent. A risk occurred. Or maybe you're married and your spouse wants a divorce, and you thought, "Hey, I thought we had a great family life." Now you have to move on as the divorced man or divorced woman, finding a new partner. Or you get what I'm saying? So being alive simply means that risk will happen. Risk is a part of being alive as a human being. So you cannot fully remove risk. If you want no risk, you have to die. Only the dead have no risk. Write this down so you understand this. Only the dead have no risk. Only the dead have this absolute certainty that nothing may upset them. As long as you're alive, you have to be flexible and deal with sudden changes and sudden events. Now, again, you have objective risks, which are actual threats to your well being and your safety. You should want to reduce those as much as possible. That's good. But shouldn't go too far in it because then it becomes paranoia. But risk avoidance, that means wanting all risk to be gone. I'm sorry, but that is delusional. That's delusional. And let me tell you, fascism, a lot of people are afraid of fascism. But let me tell you what the root of fascism is. Fascism, you can do your own research about it. Fascism is a result of the public want to avoid all risk. And let me give you a little hint. When you dislike someone, that's you avoiding internal risk. Let me tell you why. Human beings are born in a fallen state. We have fragile mortal bodies. Danger exists out there. And not everyone is guaranteed a happy childhood. So not everyone had an easy, healthy psychological development. So you will encounter human beings out there that are a bit off mentally. You will. And most of those people are not evil and don't intend harm to you. They're just a bit mentally off. If you encounter someone that's a bit mentally off, okay, so what? That is what happens till Christ comes back. That's why we all need to be renewed in our minds. We all need to recover. But what if you are the one that has a dysfunction or defect you don't want to face? Now you don't want to face your own dysfunction, your own defect. So now you project this dysfunction onto someone else. Oh, I can't stand him, I can't stand her. You may say, oh, this individual uses a cuss word, he uses the word fuck or shit often. Okay, you hold on to restrictions from other people. Other people bind you to their restrictions. This is what boundaries are. When you're bound with restriction, that's what called boundaries. They bind you. And the religion comes from Latin religare, means to bind again. So boundaries and religion are similar. And you have no religion without boundaries. So you submit to the boundaries of the community around you. You're bound to their restrictions. And those restrictions are toxic. And you experience the toxicity in you. But because you're holding on to the approval of the community, you also excuse the restrictions instead of questioning them. Instead of questioning and examining the restrictions, you hold on to them. This other individual does not hold on to restrictions. You just use so-called customers. Them just using customers at ease reflects back on you, and it forces you to see that you're quite restricted. And now you need to explain to yourself why you're so restricted. You don't want to see this. So you get upset with this other individual because this other individual's attitude reflected back on you, and now you know something about you that you don't want to see. So what do you know? You deflect back onto the other individual, and now you're upset with them. That's what disliking people comes down to. I mean, dislike becomes a habit, it turns into hatred. And when groups of people operate in hatred, you have things like genocide happening, all types of tyranny. It's all a form of risk avoidance. You don't want the risk of having your psychological ease disturbed. Look, having psychological peace is important, but most people don't have psychological peace, they have psychological ease. That's a big difference. Ease and peace. With peace, you have the Prince of Peace, Christ, present. With ease, you just have relief. Understand this. A lot of people don't want to risk having to face themselves. Facing yourself is not a bad thing, but to them, it's a detrimental thing. So anyone who doesn't reflect their escapism, to them is an enemy or a threat. Are those other people an actual threat to them? No, but to them they are a threat. So when someone dislikes you, they are projecting their own dysfunction and their own defect onto you because they don't want to risk having to face it and do something about it. So understand risk avoidance and risk reduction. I use risk avoidance in a previous live stream. Now, if you watch the live stream, please also watch this one. So you also, because in this live stream, I clarified more things from that previous live stream. Risk avoidance is something we shouldn't participate in. We should participate in risk reduction where possible. And by the way, the only effective and beneficial risk reduction is serving the Heavenly Father, operating in the resurrection part of Christ. Any other attempt for risk reduction is likely to turn out into risk avoidance. And there's a thin line between risk reduction and risk avoidance. Too many people want to remove all risks because they want to be left alone. I'm sorry, that's delusional. Risk is natural to human life. Risks existed even before sin came into the world. Yes, when Adam and Eve were made, risk was part of their being. Risk is part of human life. So you want to avoid risk means you don't want human life. And that's why the Bible says, those that hate me love death. The Heavenly Father made plain, those that hate me love death. Because the Heavenly Father is about life in abundance. The more you have, the more options you have. Listen, if there are two people in a park, is there risk on conflict, both on the same thing? Yeah, there is. If there are three people around, is there a potential outcome of conflict? Yes. If you have 1,000 people over there, you have more. So the more people you have, the more risk. Is that a problem? No, because when you serve the Heavenly Father, everyone can get along perfectly fine. So risk is part of human life. It's part of your existence. For you not to want to deal with risk is for you not wanting to be alive. So you're clinging on to death. And that's what a lot of people do in the world. They cling on to death. It's just that many don't want to admit this because they do have the biological survival mechanism that they want to stay alive. They have that. They have the biological mechanism to survive. And that's what keeps them alive. But apart from that, they have a suicidal attitude. They just don't want any risk at all. When you talk to such people, yes, they are alive. Yes, they wash out in traffic. Yes, they make sure they wear their seat belts when drive a car. Yes, they do all this. They do all the safety things they do. When it comes down to it, they don't want to actually live life. They don't have to deal with any risk. And let me tell you one thing: if you don't want any risk, you have to be dead. Only the dead have no risk. But here's the issue: when you put in your mind that you don't want any risk, you actually begin to die off on a psychological level. Why? It's when you face risks and deal with them that you feel alive and that you get excitement out of life. If you avoid every risk, you end up in a monotone repetition. And that's what society offers, a monotone repetition. And once in a while, you have a break from those monotone repetition called vacations or holidays. Vacations and holidays are a small disruption of this monotone existence that society promotes. If you get along with this monotone restriction, you get a pat on the back or some fleeting rewards. Whether it's a career or whether it's fame, those are fleeting rewards. If you don't get along with this monotone existence, you get punished, either by putting put in prison or by people shunning you, you end up homeless, whatever. Fallen mankind wants this monotone existence in which there are no risks and no possible disruptions. This monotone existence will drive you nuts. That's why you have vacations and holidays. Now you know why we have vacation holidays. But here's the issue: we wouldn't need vacation or holidays. We wouldn't need those things if we actually be living life. But here's the issue: those outside of Christ, they don't want life. Very few actually want to aim at life. By default, those outside of Christ, they want death. Now, they don't want to physically die. They want to stay alive, but they don't really want life itself. They want a monotone existence where everything stays the same forever. And by the way, even in this lifetime, it's not possible because your body changes when you so-called age on the earth. Your children will grow up. A restaurant you like to go to may close one day. A new building may be built. I mean, the babies were born 20 years ago and are now adults, so they may start families, or maybe you used to listen to certain music. Now you have other music styles. So even in this lifetime, this idea of everything staying the same and not being disrupted, it's a delusion. But it's a delusion people love. This whole thing about going to heaven is also a form of risk avoidance. That's why so many people are stuck in going to pagan church every Sunday. Why? because they think if we go to church every Sunday, then we avoid risk in life. Because we will just be going to church, that will be a certainty, going to church every Sunday, and then we die and we're in heaven and there's no risk anymore. Listen, objective risks will be gone when Jesus comes back for the believers. But natural risk will always be there. And here's another thing. When you refuse to accept natural risk, you are actually operating in rejection. And as I explained in my previous live stream, when you operate in rejection, you operate in pollution. So risk reduction is healthy and natural. Risk avoidance is not. So that previous live stream of mine called risk avoidance should be risk reduction. But I'm not going to take down the live stream. I'm going to leave it on. But now there's an update to that previous live stream I made. All right. It's 3 a.m. now, 3:02 a.m. So some cars are beginning to drive again. What I'm pointing out here is that risk reduction, okay, that's something I can get along with. Risk avoidance, I do not. Risk avoidance is an attitude of fear. Now, fear itself is an evil spirit. You have attitudes in line with these evil spirits. So when I talk about a fearful attitude, I'm talking about an attitude that's in harmony with the spirit of fear. And risk avoidance is a fearful attitude. It's the main attitude most people have, and they don't recognize how toxic it really is. So how do you unlearn this? You have to give up your refusal of life. You have to give up your no to life. You have to give up your thank you for passing by. Stop watching me. But anyway, no, just a police car passed by again. But anyway, listen. You have to give up your refusal of natural risk because you're actually refusing your own humanity by doing that because risk is part of your existence as a human being. You can't operate against your own humanity. You can't say no to your own humanity and be saying in the long run it's not going to happen. So, risk reduction, that can be proper. But when people go too far in risk reduction and they become controlling, now it's risk of avoidance, and that's a fearful attitude we should avoid. When people refuse to give up fearful attitudes, they are dangerous people to be around. They have no right to be dangerous on earth because the danger they become will affect other people too and themselves. They have the natural obligation to repent and give up being dangerous. So they don't have the quote unquote free will to choose whatever they want. They don't. They have the natural obligation to obey their Heavenly Father. So when people hold on to fearful attitudes, quietly and peacefully disengage from them. Peacefully and quietly remove yourself from them. If you do it slowly, do it slowly. Because people with fearful attitudes, that's not a good thing to be around. They love and cling onto death, not onto life. Remember that. I mean, look at this over here. Imagine someone is in the car now with his wife, and the wife says, "Honey, stop! Wait for the street lights." And the husband say, "But darling, what street lights? It's 3 a.m. Street lights aren't working. There are barely cars on the road." But the wife says, "Stop! Wait for the street lights." That would be quite disturbing because it's obvious there are barely cars on the road, so there is no actual risk for accidents because there are no other cars around. But the wife says, "Wait on the green light," and husband says, "There's no green light coming until in the morning. If you wait for green light, we have to wait there for hours." But she gets upset. We need to wait for green light. Well, let me tell you, that's the attitude a lot of human beings have. They cling onto restrictions, and anytime anything deviates from that restriction, they lose it. That's a pathological attitude. Psychologists may have a term for it. Well, I'm not a psychologist. I'm an anthropologist and sociologist. I do have knowledge of psychology, but I don't know all the psychological terms they're using for this. But Just go back to the example I give. A car drive passes by. The husband thinks, okay, we can just go because no cars on the road. The wife begins to scream, saying, stop, wait for the green light. Even though she knows consciously there's no green light until the morning, the actual morning around 6 a.m., she still gets upset because a restriction is not is not validated. Well, let me tell you, that's how boundaries work. Anytime you are operating in boundaries, you're operating into restrictions. And you're not designed by type of father to operate in restrictions. Now, restrictions can be beneficial for you. So the other restrictions you get along with and submit onto. Okay, getting along with restrictions, that's something you should do, but it shouldn't be operating in restrictions. Restrictions should be something you comply with externally for your safety and safety of other people, or for the well-being of both you and other people. But it shouldn't be operating in restrictions. You're not designed like that. So people that are into boundaries, they're clinging onto restrictions, and they end up losing it sooner or later. I mean, the whole idea of boundaries is to not reduce risk, but to avoid risk. If you want to reduce risk, that's one thing, but if you want to avoid risk, you're out of your mind. Again, on the dead have no risk. As long as your life, risk is there. Simple as that. All right. So again, if someone refuses to give up fearful attitudes, let them go. Thank you. Well, you can ask your questions now because I want to make a quick phone call before I continue cycling. Well, I could do it while I'm cycling, no problem. But for some of you, it's a bit late there because you're in North America. So that's why I want to close a bit earlier with this live stream. Please ask the questions you have about this topic. Okay, Wolborg said, I think I take risk, but the rewards is low, and even it evens out when I take that journey to get there. I have safety, but I wish the reward was higher. Well, if you want greater outcomes, you have to deal in this lifetime at least with greater backlash. So just beware of that. The bigger the outcome, the higher the resistance. They have a saying in paganism: new levels, new levels, new devils, which simply means that once you break through, or you break out of a bad, when you break out of a bad situation and you break through into something better, you break out of something bad and you break through into something new, in something better. Once you break through, there are going to be people resisting your breakthrough, and there are going to be demons enacting the claim of the public. That's why every new level you go to in life, there will be demons assigned to you by the public. Yes, the public will assign demons onto you because they're opposition towards you. Just understand that. Are there any questions? Let me know. I'll wait for another minute. If I get no questions, I will close down the live stream. Guess it was the goal of the Heavenly Father. No, I mean the aim of the Heavenly Father to have me fall to sleep early yesterday so I can do the live stream now. Because normally I would be asleep now, but I slept early yesterday. And when I woke up, I was fully awake. So and when I'm awake, I'm active. Yes, I should be. Let me see. There are no questions, or maybe there are questions, but I don't see them in the live chat. Okay. Well, anyway, thank you all for being here. Keep on agreeing with Christ, and I'll see you next time. Shalom.